Good evening and welcome to the Yarra City Council meeting of Tuesday the 6th of April 2021. This is a special meeting, so we'll only be hearing one item. I am the Mayor of Yarra, Councillor Gabrielle De Vietri, and I'm pleased to be able to welcome you to this special online meeting. Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the true sovereigns and the traditional owners of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creator spirit, Bunjil, their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung, who have never ceded sovereignty and retain their strong connections to family, clan and country, despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay respect to elders from all nations who are joining us tonight and to their elders past, present and future. Tonight at this council meeting we have Councillor Herschel Landers, Councillor Bridget O'Brien, Councillor Sophie Wade, Deputy Mayor Councillor Claudia Nguyen, Councillor Stephen Jolly, Councillor Edward Crosland and Councillor Amanda Stone. From the council staff, we have Vijaya Vaidyanath, Chief Executive Officer, the Group Manager of the CEO's Office, Ivan Gilbert, Lucas Gosling, the Director of Community Wellbeing, sorry, I don't actually have the full list of who's here tonight. Is it the same as other council meetings? Ivan? Mr. Gilbert?
Yes, Mayor. Yes, Mayor.
Great,
yes.
Thank you. We have Brooke Colbert, the Group Manager of Advocacy and Engagement, Gracie Carabinas, the Group Manager of People and Culture, Chris Levers, Director of City Works and Assets, Diarmid Makalari, the Director of Corporate Business and Finance, Bruce Phillips, the Director of Planning and Placemaking, Reese Thomas, Senior Governance Advisor, and Mel Niku, Governance Advisor. And we have Councillor Anab Mohammed, who has joined us tonight. Good evening. We have no absences or apologies or leave applications for leave of absence. And do we have any conflicts of interest to declare councillors and council staff? No. Fantastic, thanks. In that case, we will go on to the first and only item of business tonight, which is a rescission motion. So, Councillor Jolly, I'll ask you to state the motion. It will then be seconded. We'll then hear from submissions from the public, and then Councillor Jolly and seconder, I'll invite you to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I formally move the motion as tabled in tonight's agenda for the rescind of item 8.2 from last Tuesday night's council meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor O'Brien, thank you. We have two people to submit to tonight's item. First of all, on the list, I have Nicole Eckersley. Nicole, are you in the room with us tonight?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Fabulous.
Thank you for making a submission. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor De Vietri. I must say I was surprised to be back here so quickly after the submission last time, but I guess that's how things are going. Yeah, look, I was very surprised to see the rescission motion. I guess it's an interesting turn if things don't work out to sort of pull the rug underneath. But I guess what I'd just sort of like to say to start off with is that actually it's a real privilege to be arguing about what's best for people under housing stress. Like, it's so rare to see a situation where actually everybody has the best interests of people who are under housing stress at heart. And just to be arguing about the best way to do it is actually, it's lovely. I've got to say it. But I mean, I think what I'll just do is very quickly go over what I said last week with a couple of extra things.
Sorry, Nicole, sorry to interrupt you. I just realised I did forget to just give some guidance as to the submissions tonight, and it will apply to councillors as well. So my apologies for interrupting you. But just because this is a procedural motion, what we're debating on is not the substantive benefits or. Oh, hello. Oh, if you could all turn your microphones off, that would be great. So what we're debating tonight is about the procedural motion and the rescission and arguments for or against that, rather than the substantive content of arguing for one of the a motion or an alternative as to what to build. So just if you could keep that in mind.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's interesting you say that, actually, because I don't think the two things are extricable. I think we have a situation here where the rescission motion is a direct underpinning for the next step in the process. It has been explicitly stated as such that this is the first step to returning to square one. So I think the fact that we have a rescission motion on the table at all is fundamentally about whether or not this development, the Collingwood Town Hall summary report describes, should have a second bite of the cheese wheel. And I think ultimately what we're deciding today is whether that development, which was very thoroughly discussed last week, should get another bite of the cheese wheel. And I think I don't really see that there has been any really strong case of any sort made for that. I've been following pretty closely, and I've just not seen any argument that would merit going back to the first state of play. And I think that the motion that was made last time should stand.
Thank you, and I appreciate you taking my comments midway through your submission, and apologise for interrupting you. But thank you very much for making that submission and for joining us here tonight for a second council meeting in a row. Sorry,
Mayor, just a question to you, Mayor. Sorry, for some reason I've been told that my camera is not on, but it's on my end. It is on, and I can see and hear all of you, and obviously you can hear me, but I don't understand why. I just want to say that I'm here, just so you know that
we had you before, Stephen.
Yeah.
It's just the visual.
No, I fixed that issue just before you mentioned it. You slipped out of the live stream for a minute due to a technical problem at my end.
Sorry, Mayor. Thank you for that.
But your video is still off for me. I don't know if that's other people can see you. Okay.
It's on for me. I can see you.
All right, great. It's just me then. I've got a blind spot, it seems. Okay, so we will now proceed to the next submitter, and we have Kate Shaw listed as the next submitter. So, Kate, are you with us tonight? Mr. Thomas, is Kate here with us? Oh, yeah. Hi, Kate. Thank you for joining us. Hi. I can hear you. Yes. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you, and I'm pleased to be here, and it's nice to see you all. So I live just off Vere Street in Abbotsford, near the Town Hall, and I've been worried about the Memorial Hall for not just years, but decades. It must be nearly 10 years ago that I participated in a workshop there to consider converting it into an art space, and still it sits empty. I think that the offer from the state government to build social housing in that precinct is wonderful. It should be a fine time for you all. You should be celebrating. And it appears that you agree on almost all aspects of the proposal to have social housing and community services in this excellently located precinct. So I'd really like to help resolve the points of difference, I think, which I appear to be very few. First, in my view, the council should stipulate in no uncertain terms that the private housing component is not needed, but the social and affordable housing are welcome, at least 100 units. There may be anxiety, I think, that the state will withdraw its offer if the private component is removed. I say, let it try. If Yarra Council stands strong and says we do not need private housing on council land, the area is surrounded by private housing, and the only housing we need there is social housing, and we will be very grateful for the funding from the big build to achieve it, at least 100 units, thank you, the state government will have no choice but to agree. Minister Wynne would have to threaten to withdraw funding if there's no private housing in there, which will cause outrage in his own seat. And I, for one, will be seeking personal meetings with him if he doesn't agree to this, and I won't be the only one. Also, I think it's worth noting that no one will be able to turn around and call the Greens NIMBY, as John Fain did so ignorantly on Sunday. Second, I think no council land should be sold. It can be leased to whichever housing association will manage the social housing, as the state will probably do with its small land component, and I think you all agree on this anyway, actually. Third, the housing component should be carried out without delay. The state spend and build does not require consultation, and in this instance, I think this is the right approach. The proposal should be entirely uncontroversial anyway. Fourth, the provision of more community services on the site, I think, is an excellent idea. This will take a little longer in determining precisely what and where and how, and the council should take that time. Once settled and budgeted for, you can contract a builder and pay for the work directly. So in conclusion, I urge you all to reject the rescission motion, and when you return to meet in 2 weeks, propose a new motion that confirms the request for a minimum 100-unit social housing complex on the Collingwood Town Hall precinct, and commits to leaseholds only, with no privatisation whatsoever of council land. And I have no doubt that you will succeed. So good luck, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Kate, for your submission and for your kind of depth of passion and interest in this issue. It's very much appreciated having you here tonight. Councillors, it's now the opportunity for Councillor Stephen Jolly to speak to the motion. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you, Mayor. My rescind motion is not an abuse of the democratic process, but in fact, in my opinion, quite the opposite. The motion that we passed last week to replace a real project, which, by the way, was amended to was going to be amended by Councillor Nguyen and myself to say that there would be no sell-off of public land, with a unicorn project with sketchy, unfunded details, with a motion tabled 29 minutes before the meeting. That, in my opinion, is a distortion of the democratic process. Now, at least through this rescind motion, the public, through the tabling of the rescind motion on the council website, have been able to see the motion that was passed last week. I'm arguing that we need to rescind because paragraph 36 of the officer's report last week said that all the past plans for this site, and we've been talking to the state government on this site for 4 years now, have been turbocharged by the announcement of the $5.3 billion housing package. It's a game changer. We know why they've done that. The stimulus, they have to spend money in the stimulus, the pressure they're under from below from the public because of the housing crisis, and also because we live in a marginal seat. And that's why we have to rescind this motion, walking away from what I believe to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for some utopian plan is bad governance. Now, the so-called alternative plan, the project that we passed at last week's meeting that will be now council policy if this rescind motion fails tonight, has no money attached to it. I asked the officers this week to look at the proposal that we passed last week and to give us some figures as to what the funding was for it. And they responded today to me and to all the councillors, and they said that the cost associated with making the Soldiers and Sailors building functional is in the order of $4 to $5 million. And that would not provide any additional services. And it doesn't include the fit out or operational costs. Another $7 million would be necessary to put in a library, the MCH service and the art space. And if we want to do any more than that, like with a toy library, community hiring spaces and so on, that's $21 million. When I asked, do we have a partner for this? They said we don't have a partner. It's unlikely we would identify a partner. And we can't take on these project costs themselves because we're taking a hit from COVID. So a council that last week told us that we're in financial strife and we have to hit up the sports clubs for more money is now this week saying that we've got to find $21 million for a project to clean up the site, 100% social housing and so on. It's, in my opinion, virtue signaling pipe dream. It's not going to happen. Now, just before the last state election, we got the 20% on the gas and fuel side. Just before now, because of the three reasons I said before, we've got this offer. And this is the key point, and where I disagree respectfully with the submitter, Dr. Kate Shaw, who's an amazing campaigner for housing, and I've known her for many, many years. But she, in my opinion, she's wrong. It's not like two chess players in a country club where we can have a little negotiation with the state government. We have dragged them into a position which none of us expected to be offering us money for this project. If we dilly-dally, if we play games, that money will go elsewhere. We will blow this project, and they will be quite happy to slag off this council in the media, and that will be the end of it. And that's why I think that instead of instead of embracing this opportunity and making it as good as possible, some councillors, in my opinion, are coming up with a million reasons not to do it. And what that will lead to is the sacrificing of homes for hospitality, for hospital workers, for key emergency workers who work in our area but can't afford to live in our area in the future. And I'd say, finally, Mayor, to yourself, respectfully, and to your colleagues in the Greens and so on, you, and this is a compliment, your party is one of the reasons why the state government have come to the party with us and offered us this money. The work that you guys have done on the public housing estates, through your leader, Adam Band, through this, at the state level, and even at a local level as well, has put the council, the state government, in a position where they've had to come up with this money. You should own this. You should say, yes, we'll take that money. Yes, we'll develop this site. Yes, we'll build 100 low-cost houses. We'll do the 1,000 square meters of community facilities with no loss of green open space. And the reason that you're giving us that money is because of the work that we've done, rather than reject it in the name of some type of conflict or because of some state government election drama next year. So I think that the only way forward for us is to take the money on the table. If we don't, there is no second chance at this. And what will happen on that side is nothing will happen on that side. And that will be one of the worst decisions, I think, Mayor, that we've ever made. I'll leave it at that at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Councillor O'Brien, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess part of why I believe we should support this rescind motion is because I don't think it is good practice for us to be supporting a motion that was put forward half an hour before the meeting, which hadn't been considered by the whole of council. It wasn't one of the options put forward by officers, so it was untested, no real feasibility study, etc., etc. My view is that this motion is a motion to do nothing, because as we know from the arguments at last council meeting about the sports clubs, council has no money and is trying to find money wherever it can. So we will not be finding over $21 million for this project. It'll mean we get no social or affordable housing in this space. It is truly a motion to do nothing. And Kate, I completely agree with you about 100% social housing would be absolutely appropriate. And I think that's why we need to support the rescind motion, go back to the table, and as you say, ensure that we get 100% social housing into one of the options put forward before us. So I certainly don't agree that there should be private housing. I don't agree that we should do anything other than lease off some of the land. We certainly shouldn't be selling council land. And so therefore I encourage my colleagues to let us go back to the drawing board and come up with a better option, and one that the community has an opportunity to see, by the way, as well, and be part of the conversation.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillors, would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Landers.
Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to thank Dr. Kate Shaw's contribution tonight, and she makes a very valid point. There's nothing to stop us coming back to the table and reviewing all of this. Nobody's mentioned air rights. What the motion that was made in good faith by a quorum of councillors voted 6-2 was about proprietary of the land, and nothing was said about air rights. So there's nothing to stop this council going forward on the basis of air rights and receiving funds from the government to supply social housing. The facts are that Councillor Jolly attended the vote but failed to speak to the motion when there was plenty of opportunity for him to do so, and he was part of the losing vote. He wasn't prevented from participating in the vote. Councillor Jolly has failed to provide any evidence that councillors have been materially misinformed or that they were not able to form judgments, or their judgments weren't materially impeded. Councillor Jolly has failed to provide any evidence that the absence on medical grounds by Councillor Bryan would have led to another outcome. This motion before you is not about the merits of the original motion, but rather about whether the judgment formed by a 6-2 majority of councillors was properly conducted in a constituted meeting. So, as I said, there's nothing to stop us going forward at another time, and I would commend Councillor Jolly to do that and bring to the table another way forward. And also the importance of bringing the community on board in this consultation process as well. So I seek to oppose the rescission motion.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Nguyen.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I think the main pitfall for me with the motion that has passed is that we have no funding partner there. We know that with option A, to provide 50% social and affordable housing, we do have a funding partner that makes the project extremely viable, that offsets the capital costs, some of it, not all of it, but it becomes so much more financially viable. And the gravity and scale of this decision and its value to the community, the resources and years invested in providing, this significant plan, the viability with the state government's funding means that this debate needs to happen at a full hearing with council, given that at the last council meeting we had a councillor that was absent. We've never had an opportunity like this before, a project of this calibre, and we cannot, as a self-proclaimed progressive council, turn away a project that has a funding partner, that puts a roof over the heads of our low-income community on top of delivering community facilities. And I honestly can't fathom why we would turn this away in favour of a project that has no financial plan, that will require years to provide feasibility, to construct. And I don't think this is a good outcome for our community.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Stone, do you have your hand up to speak against the motion?
I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Now?
Mr. Thomas, is that, are we able to take questions once the debate has started?
Ordinarily we wouldn't unless they're procedural in nature, but the question is really up to your discretion, Mayor.
Okay. Is the question procedural in nature, Councillor Stone?
No, it's not. It's about some of the content of what's been said.
Okay. Is it to seek clarification from a councillor?
From an officer.
Okay. To seek clarification from an officer,
yeah.
I will allow that.
Thank you, and I think it's to Mr. Gosling. Speakers for this rescission motion have said that alternately there's no funding for community facilities in the motion that was passed last week, and at the same time that there is support for only social housing. Can you, which kind of I can't make sense of, can you confirm that the only way in which the community facilities would be funded would be through a public-private partnership with private dwellings, as in option A from the last week?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor.
Mr. Gosling?
It's a complex question, that one. I wouldn't say it's the only way. I think that would be unfairly characterising it. Look, certainly a project of this kind with a funding partner would provide some offsets to the foundations of community infrastructure. So, for example, the remediation of the site is an example of that. Certainly, some of the more broader community structure build may be covered, but the actual community infrastructure itself would not be part of the social and affordable housing build per se. We would still need to seek alternative funding for some of that community infrastructure. It's just sometimes easier to do that in a build that is of a sort of mixed use type. So in addition to that, it also means that the partnership arrangements would allow us to seek those opportunities. Now, we have not specifically identified any community infrastructure funding for that component in option A. We haven't done that, but as I said, there would be some offsets because of the nature of the build, and also because of the fact that, and remembering, of course, that in the original guidance that council provided officers, it did include private sale. Now, councillors have, of course, rejected that as an idea, and that is fine. So we would still need to find some alternative funds.
Thank you, Mr. Gosling. Councillors, would anyone like to speak against the motion? I will say some words against the motion, and specifically against some of the assumptions and assertions that have been made by those speaking for the motion. Procedurally, everything was 100% above board with how the motion was brought to councillors. It was given in plenty of time for councillors to consider in a manner that was usual and common and normal and above board. So there are no procedural issues with how the motion was brought. As far as I'm concerned, nothing has changed since the motion was voted for by a majority of councillors. And the main reason why I voted against giving public land to private developers is because I do not support the gifting of public land for private profit to developers. As a Greens, I will never vote. As a Greens represented councillor, I will never vote for giving public land to a private developer. I know that the option that awaits us if we were to rescind this motion is one that contains predominantly high-end private apartments, and that is what is being proposed. Councillor O'Brien, the motion that we voted in support of was a motion to go to the community for consultation, to incorporate a 100% social housing build, and to provide community facilities for our public housing residents and the broader Collingwood and Abbotsford community. So it sounds like, I know you were supposed to be talking in favour of it, but it does sound like what you want to see is exactly the motion that was voted for last week by councillors. The statement that there is no funding partner, well, we have launched this motion in order to find out how much it would cost to begin the process to consult with community. This is the very first step. We don't have all the answers yet, but this step can only lead to those answers being found out. And there is no assertion, nobody is asserting that there is actually a funding partner for the motion that is being proposed as an alternative. The state has made no commitment to funding either plan, a 100% social housing plan or a 50% market rate high-end apartment plan. There is no funding partner for either one. It's just as much of an unknown as to whether the state government will actually step up to contributing towards this project as part of their Victoria's Big Build. And that is just as unknown. So the fact that there's no funding partner is no reason not to go forward with an idea. Yeah, there are other things. I think I reject this idea that it's utopian. It certainly is aspirational, but it is better to have a utopian idea than a near-capitalist venture to privatise public land for developer profit. If we were to rescind this motion, this would be a true version of dilly-dallying. We have firmly made a commitment, 6 councillors out of 8, to say that we will support 100% social housing on this land and a community facility for public housing residents and the broader community. Let's not dilly-dally, and let's vote against this rescission motion. Thank you. Would anyone like to speak for the motion? In that case, I will put this to the vote.
I get a right of reply.
Pardon me, Councillor Jolly, please write a reply.
I'm really offended when people say that the motion that was going to be posed, option A, as amended by Councillor New and myself, had anything to do with the sell-off of public land. It specifically said that is not what we want to do. I have spent my whole life fighting for public housing and against the sell-off of public land to the private sector. That was never in the, that's the paper tiger, it's not an issue. We've had an offer on the table from the officers, offer number 1, which is the result of 4 years of negotiations between themselves and the state government. Anyone who thinks that we're not 5 seconds away from them giving us a proportion of that $5.3 billion build, when it's a marginal seat, the pressure that they're under at the moment and the comments that Wynne has been saying in the media is just in denial. Compared to an unfunded alternative proposal that we pushed last week. Councillor Landers says he can't see what the point of my rescind motion is. The point of my rescind motion, I'll give you one reason. The council officers have told us since last Tuesday that it's going to cost us $21 million and we don't have any funding for that, and we don't have a partner for that. We wouldn't have known that if we hadn't rescinded the motion. That shows that this motion that we passed last week is actually not going to happen. In terms of what Dr. Shaw said, if we agree with what Dr. Shaw said, we have to rescind this motion and then have a new debate next week, I should say, or on the 20th, along the lines of what she said. We can't come back to the table because the government have told us, it's clear, even from last Saturday's Age or whenever it was, that if we don't accept this offer, all bets are off. So what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? That the motion will be defeated, the rescind motion will be defeated, the motion of last week will be our position. We'll send the officers off to talk to the state government when we'll just be lambasted from pillar to post tomorrow, and nothing will happen on that site. There'll be no money for anything to happen on that site if we say no to the big share of the $5.3 billion projects. The Soldiers and Sailors building will remain a wreck. The area will continue to be a backwater in Abbotsford. And instead of new homes for hospitality workers, for hospital workers, the people who clean our toilets at night but have to train it in every day and night to work here, they won't be able to live there. That will be our legacy. And all the while, gentrification will increase in this area. And this council will increasingly go more and more and more conservative. And a future council will look at that land and go, we own this land. Let's flog it all off to the private sector. Never mind X percentage of social housing, community facilities. So the alternative to taking this offer that's on the table now is that in the future we lose the whole thing and there will be wall-to-wall private apartments in 5 or 6 years' time. And that is the tragedy of this decision. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. We've come to the end of the debate, so I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of rescinding the last week's motion, in favour of the motion.
Mayor, can we just do a verbal, because some people can't see some people, apparently, I've just been told.
I can see Councillor Bridget O'Brien, Councillor Stephen Jolly and Deputy Mayor Councillor Claudia Nguyen. Thank you. That is lost. I now bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much for joining us, Nicole and Kate, and thank you to those watching and council officers. Good night.